time to turn our focus right to Apple ahead of its release of Apple Intelligence, which is due out later this month. Of course, everybody was so excited about the upgrade cycle for the 16, what Apple Intelligence would bring. We're learning more as we go. It's not yet installed. Martin Yang's with us, Senior Analyst of Emerging Technologies and Services, Oppenheimer & Company, and William Kerwin, Equity Analyst at Morningstar. So, Martin, I'll start with you. We watched Apple shares hitting all-time highs. What are your thoughts on the valuation of Apple relative to what's coming in the world of AI?
Thank you.
The valuation is definitely at the higher end of the historical range, but Apple in the world of AI is the best venue for consumer-facing AI apps. And there's no better hardware to consistently carry the value of AI or consumer AI apps across PC, or laptops, tablets, watch, and phones. And if you think about the best-in-class AI consumer experience, and Apple will be the go-to hardware vendors.
And over at Morningstar, you raised the fair value estimate to 185 from 170. Tell me a little bit about where you think this is headed, William, and why.
Thanks, Nicole. We have pretty bullish views, we think, for the impact of AI driving new device sales for Apple, particularly for the iPhone. So we think this will be a multi-year cycle with the iPhone 16 this year and the iPhone 17 next year. But we weigh that against seeing the valuation is pretty challenging today. Apple is near an all-time high, and we think its multiple has expanded past healthy levels, essentially. So while we have a very favorable view of what the fundamentals look like going forward, we think shares are overvalued today.
Yeah, it sounds like no one's jumping on board to way higher price targets here for Apple, but you like what they're doing. William, you mentioned the 16, this year, the 17 next year. Do you think people might even pause and not get the 16 for the holidays because they figure the 17 will come out? Or what kind of, growth are you expecting? I mean, I thought this was supposed to be the revolutionary time for Apple. Is it?
I believe we are in a super cycle, but this super cycle, I think the adoption curve will look a little different. We're already seeing relatively weaker initial reception for iPhone launch, but with the release of Apple Intelligence later this month, I think that will spread through word of mouth how much more innovative new experience Apple Intelligence will bring, and that will drive a stronger uptick in device upgrades and new device purchase in calendar 2025. So I'm still expecting a stronger cycle, but the cycle will come up and later with more months after release, not immediately.
Yeah. Do you feel that, Martin, that the balance sheet looks good to you? I mean, it's been referred to as a stellar balance sheet.
Yeah, balance sheet is rock solid. They still have more room for share repurchases, and this is increasingly a higher margin business and doesn't really detract the companies from returning more cash to shareholders. So I don't think there's any investor concerns on the balance sheet.
Right. And then when you think about the holidays, I mean, do you think that we will see demand? I mean, we talked about the different products and upgrades that we're seeing across the board. I mean, one, from the ear, the AirPods, and also the watches and things like that. I mean, detecting sleep apnea, for example, or helping with your hearing, adjusting for your hearing, almost like a hearing aid. I mean, it was is that monumental to you, and will that help holiday sales?
I wouldn't characterize it as monumental, but I do expect this holiday sales to have improving device sales across the accessories, the laptops, and iPads and iPhones. iPhones in the holiday season, will be supported by Apple Intelligence rollout. I think definitely have a very positive outlook into holiday sales for Apple in the December quarter.
Yeah, and I think about the Apple Vision Pro, which came out, I forget what it was, 3,000 plus. Hopefully they're going to bring that price down at some point. But William, how are you feeling about, you have a Meta, which announced a competitor for the Apple Vision Pro, and the holidays are coming up. I mean, what could be a win for Apple and what not so much?
We really think the Vision Pro is less about what the product looks like this year and more about where that product is evolving in 5 years' time, even in 10 years' time. Clearly, this is going to be a competitive environment. Meta is investing a lot in this. We think Apple will continue investing. To your point, we expect a lower price point, still probably in the ballpark of $2,000, to come out for maybe a basic Vision product in a year or two. But ultimately, we see this as a low volume product that Apple wants to eventually drive towards something that looks more like glasses.
Yeah. Martin, are you worried about the regulatory environment? I mean, the ecosystem of Apple is incredible. If you have a home filled with Apple everything, at the same time, the regulators don't always like that. Where do we stand there? Is that an overhang on the stock?
I don't think it's an overhang anymore. I think the biggest market for Apple on services in the US, and I think the ruling against App Games dictates that Apple will stay, App Store will stay pretty safe without strong alternatives in the US market. And elsewhere, there will be third-party app stores that challenge Apple's own on app distribution, but because Apple's users doesn't really benefit that much more from alternative app stores. So I think the overall software ecosystem stays very strong for Apple, providing the best ease of access for users.
And I think once people really understand what Apple Intelligence is, or they understand how to utilize it, then it will become more desirable. Because even right now, people are sort of uncertain why they need AI exactly, on their newest phone. Thank you both so much. Martin Yang of Oppenheimer & Company, William Kerwin of Morningstar. Martin, William, thank you both.